Boom. And then let me check my audio. Give it a couple seconds, guys. We'll get started. Let my audio kick in. Hold up. Live stream starting soon. Where's it at? Boom. And then there you go. Cool. All right. So, welcome to week 2. So this is kind of where, so last week, right, just recapping kind of what's happening here. We started with, I guess the environment painting that I did last month for June's kind of topic. And then really what we're kind of getting into now is hard surface design. And then we had voted on kind of continuing on with that project, selecting which, kind of, I guess thing I wanted to go for. I wanted to go for this kind of coffee house, tea house type thing, right? And then I made this left one here. This building here is the kind of first one I did. I don't know if I took it any further after the session. I think it's exactly the same, if I'm not mistaken. But this is kind of where I left off. It was one idea, right? And then, so what I did over this week, really, within basically another hour, I didn't really take these too far, but I kind of just made 2 other versions of possible solutions, right? And really what I'm doing here was I'm kind of exploring different shapes, right? Because I've kind of already established what I want to happen, right? In the image, the environment shot, right? We have a this kind of like water kind of falling, waterfall type thing, and the whole area is kind of like covered in water. And I was thinking, what if we could like use that to our advantage, right? And so that's where this kind of like inverted roof kind of came in, right? I think when I first made it, rotate, nope, not 180, rotate 180. I think I had it like that, like a very standard roof. But I was like, what if it like catches water? And so I kind of started doing that. And then I've kind of built it on a couple different ideas, right? So this first one being a standalone kind of like, building that they would put somewhere like underneath one of those waterfalls. This building here being something that would like be integrated into a wall, right? It would be like integrated, and then as the water kind of comes down it, it kind of catches that, and it was looking okay. And then the next one was, what if I didn't gather it that way at all? What if you just pulled it from the, from where it is, right? It's on the ground, so it just kind of pulls it up. Very similar like most like coffee machine-esque things, right? There's piping and stuff like that. I felt like this was a little too futuristic. It just, it wasn't hitting the vibe that I kind of wanted. This one was okay. I wasn't really feeling it. This one, like, I still kind of liked where it was. I like the idea of it, but I don't quite like where it currently is, right? So today, what we're going to be talking about is variations, right? So the ideation phase is really meant for us to kind of go as far wide as we can, right? So in this case being, we have 3, generally different ideas in the way it functions, the way it's positioned, and the way it kind of gathers water, right? And hopefully, you'd probably want to do like maybe a couple more. I usually end at around like 5 different ideas, generally speaking. And then the 6th one being the combination of everything that I did like, right? And so with these things, with these designs, I want to point out a couple things. I'm not really getting into details. There's little things here and there that I probably didn't need to model, but overall, generally speaking, it's very simple. It just performs the action of understanding like what the main structure is, right? Because from here, this would be about 70% of the shape, maybe like 60% of the shape. And then I can like, adapt from here. Everything would get, 5 or 6 times more complicated. All the pieces will start building up, but I'm trying not to go too deep into this model, right? Oftentimes I find like, during mentorship, during classes, or even at work, when we're trying to present ideas, right? It can get too complicated, right? You'll be making your variations, and it's just like there's so much detail involved. Like you can already see that people are applying like textures and displacement maps and all these things, right? And then even like in 2D, when you start rendering actual materials versus just kind of color coding things, right? it gets way too complicated. And really, in this first phase, we just need the base shape and kind of what it does. We can adjust from here. We can figure out, like how to, skin this to make it look good. But overall, we just need the main structure, right? Because with the ideation phase, really what we're trying to do is expand outwards, right? We want to go in like 4 or 5 different directions to then be like, okay, we kind of like where this is going. We kind of like where that's going. We like this piece. We like that piece, whatever it is. And then the variation phase is where we kind of pull all of that together, and hopefully we kind of take the pieces we like and combine it into something interesting, right? So that's kind of what I already started doing. What I did was I had these 3 ideas, and I was like, okay, I think I have enough information here for me to be like, this is kind of cool, right? There's potential in all of these. Some of these, like this one here, probably not exactly what I'm looking for. A little too like industrial feeling. And this one, maybe a little too simple. There's some things with it. I don't like that it needs to always be like kind of connected to a wall. Like, we could have that as a variation, like one of the other buildings could kind of have that, right? But I think, I was kind of, I really wasn't feeling that one too much, right? And this one, I like that initial idea I had where it just kind of takes advantage of that environment. And I think something that you want to kind of focus on when you're designing, right, is how do we take advantage of the other things that are happening in this scene, all right? So the reason why I started with this kind of broader environment design, right, is because we have a general idea of kind of what we want to do in our scenes, right? It's like there's these waterfalls, these huge rocks, it's the circular pattern, all these things that we had, right? Check out, go into my Discord and check out the demo kind of channel, and you'll see the paintings, the painting that I did. But check that out, and you can kind of see like there's a general idea happening, but there isn't anything too specific, right? Like, the buildings are just kind of buildings there. We can push those further, but overall, it's like you're just kind of getting a general vibe. Now we're going one level deeper, right? We're creating this prop that has more intention and that's evolved since I did the props the first time, right? If I go back into some of these weeks, I'm gonna go to this week right here. Let me see. Hold up. There you go. Yeah, we're good. Let's just open the JPEG. It's fine. Oops. All right. So we have this image here, and then week 2 we had this PSB or PSD, right? Which is just just these. But there it is. All right. So we had these buildings that I used to create this painting. And then I'm using this painting to go back and create these buildings, right? And you see how they're all tying into each other. And what I want everyone here to understand, everybody here watching, everybody, watching later, your idea can evolve, right? Your idea can change, your idea can grow, and that's expected. Because what we don't want to do is do a design pass like this, right? Where we're doing like, okay, cool, I have these buildings, and then represent these 100%. It's boring. It doesn't. It's too simple, right? A lot of these things, I started this when I only had these. Where is it at? When I only had this right here. This was the introduction to the project, right? When I just started making shapes, and I was like, okay, let's make some random things and we'll kind of, have fun with it, right? The ideas here are not the same ideas that I had whenever I got to this stage, right? Very different parts of the process and a lot farther along in this pipeline. And this is kind of how concept art generally works, right? We give our first pass at it where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. We refine that a little bit further. And then we use that for the next steps, right? We're getting into the bigger picture, right? Just like a vibe, a feeling of the scene. And then we start actually solidifying. And when we solidify, we don't want to just copy, right? It's very tempting to be like, I already designed it here, right? It already looks okay here. So let's just make this. And what I want to say to everybody here is you can always make your ideas better, right? You can always increase it, because right now the function of the space, the function of the buildings don't really belong in that space. Not that it doesn't, right? But like it it's not like, I guess the design of the buildings weren't thought with this painting in mind, right? Because I had these buildings before I had this painting. But now that I introduced a couple more ideas with these waterfalls, with these huge rocks, with all this fog and this and that, there's a couple extra things that I didn't have in my mind when I was making these buildings, right? And so, with those new thoughts, I need to adapt my designs again just to make this tie in a little bit nicer. And this is how ideas grow. This is how you make things that, are a little bit more interesting, and you kind of come up with ideas that, you know, you couldn't have initially thought of, right? Because the complexity, as you can tell, is kind of ramping up, right? The deeper we go, every painting we do, the ideas get more and more complex. And this is what I want everybody to understand is, as a concept artist, as a designer, right? Don't get stuck to your initial idea, right? Because the initial idea is just that. It's just a way for us to, kind of walk into the thing, right? Where it's like you're walking into what this could be. You're kind of exploring some ideas, but as you go further, right, it starts to develop and grow, and you want that to happen, right? And so that's just the long explanation of, the ideas changing, right? And so going back to Blender, I have these kind of basic shapes here, and I kind of liked this first one. There were some proportion things that I wasn't really into that much. And so I changed it into this idea, right? So I kind of took this, maybe a couple degrees further, right? It's the same thing. I kind of changed some proportions for very specific reasons. I'll tell you about it in a second. And then I just kind of added some of these like kind of roof structures just to, get it to feel more like the intended direction that we had in the, in this one right here. More of the intended direction we kind of had here, right? There's little things here and there that I'm pushing and pulling. Every new step I'm coming into, like I'm just trying to like push and pull ideas, but we're getting into like medium and small details at this point. So something that I kind of liked about this, I was looking at tea ceremony things, so I should look it up right now. Tea ceremony, right? And there's this pot, right? You can actually see it. Just pull it over. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Actually, we'll just open that in a new window. There you go. So there's this pot right here, and that's where the hot water is. It's like kind of iron, and there's this like thing around it. But basically, that's the kind of water source, right? And I was like, oh, what if this whole building kind of just had a general idea like that? And I was like, oh, what if this could be like made of stone, right? It's like kind of like this thick insulating heat thing that maybe they kind of built on top of. Maybe this is a container of water. This lid could probably, what I was thinking would be, it would, set origin to pressure. I was thinking, oh, what if they kind of had some sort of like system mechanism that kind of opened it up, and you could like have that function, right? I think something that I was responding to here, the reason why I had that idea, right, is because when I had these and I built this one, right, I was like, okay, let's try some piping, let's try to like, I guess create a network where these buildings are actually pumping water in, more like, like an espresso machine type of thing. But I kind of didn't like it because I felt like with the lever espresso machine that I had, there's a more mechanical function to it. You know what I mean? Like there's a more physical kind of feature versus like, motorized pumps pumping water essentially, right? And so I decided against that for that very reason, right? And this is something that I want to kind of talk about with everybody here. It's something where when you're designing, there's inherent features about your references that, you want to kind of understand, right? There's, the physicality of some of the references, like in my case with the lever espresso machine specifically, right? that has a very like physical nature to it, right? There's a very mechanical aspect to it. And so when I'm designing, I didn't want to create a mechanism that was more automatic, because that's what the other espresso machine is, right? But why did I pick the lever espresso machine specifically, right? Because I like that mechanical aspect. And so when I was designing these buildings, when I made that new idea, I was like, oh, yeah, what if it was just like a mechanical thing where they just literally opened the lid, right? Because on that espresso machine specifically, the one that we had on the reference board, the tank on top, you just kind of take off the lid and you pour water in, right? It's the same kind of function. And so I wanted to kind of maintain that. And maybe there's like a more mechanical lever action kind of thing that happens inside that would, make this kind of like pivot, like that or whatever it is. I don't exactly know how it's going to go. It's a little big to kind of be doing that, but we'll figure that out as we're kind of rolling here, right? But that's the idea. We're just kind of creating, just reasons for things to exist. Because at the end of the day, right, this design could have been anything. There's a lot of things here that that can just be whatever it wants to be. A lot of these base shapes don't need to kind of be the way I kind of set them up to be, but we're just kind of messing around and seeing what happens, right? So, yeah, in the comment sections, it turned into Art Deco instead. Yeah, you're right, and it's nothing wrong with that, right? It's not that that's like good or bad. It's just, not the direction we're trying to go. We're trying to go this week, right? And I could probably lean into it if I truly wanted to, but that's it's not really something that I'm trying to go into this week, right? So, we can take some of those ideas. And what I did like, so something that I did like about this one, I like that repeating nature, right? That, the columns or the pipes kind of repeating, or at the very least, like this kind of like, I don't know, gesture on the sides of the building, right? And so I was kind of playing with that idea a little bit, and I linked it just back into the roof where we kind of had these like pipe scenario things. And what I was thinking, right, was that this building here, right, is kind of sitting here. Here, let's do a screenshot, and we'll kind of work with this. Boom. Let's just do something chill. All right. Boom. Desktop. Pop up, buddy. There it is. All right, so we have this building here, right? And then what I want to do is I want to illustrate this. This isn't the exact view that we're going to have, but the water is going to be kind of flowing in, and I want it to kind of start overflowing, right? There's a process in tea ceremony where they're kind of like they like I was saying before, they use a lot of water. It's like there's a lot of like pouring on cups and pouring things out and pouring things in, this and that. And a lot of like washing of the things, right? And so I was like, oh, what if it just like if you had a natural waterfall there, you can't stop the flow of water, right? Because it's natural. I mean, you probably could, but that's not the point. And then so what if it starts overflowing? I was like, oh, that'd be a really cool roof structure where it's like those when you go to those nice restaurants and they have those walls, those like the walls that have like just water running down. Like, what if water was just running down this thing? And so for the roof, I made oops, I was trying to navigate in Blender. For the roof, I made these kind of like it's a gap in here, so you can kind of go like under that. That's a bowl. It kind of bowls in like that, right? It goes down this way, but it could also kind of catch on this side as well. And what I was thinking, oh, what if there was this kind of like system that kind of just sent water out, right? That way the building is kind of covered in water, and then there's an inherent function kind of happening there. And then there's when it starts to overflow, or if it starts to overflow, there's another way for it to get out, right? And I kind of wanted to create this if you've seen some like Japanese architecture, they do have this kind of like a chain system as a like a gutter system, essentially, right? It's like, water goes in the roof and then it comes down the thing. They put this chain here, and the water kind of like flows in and then just kind of runs down the chain. It looks pretty cool. But I wanted to kind of include that in this to kind of give it that vibe. And this way, the whole building is kind of moving, is kind of breathing almost, you know what I mean? And I thought that'd be kind of interesting to see in a world like this. So little decisions like that, right? just trying to create something that, you know, may or may not be cool, you know. So we'll see how this goes. We were kind of in a we have like a base structure, right? You can kind of see like the doors and the walls and some railings and stuff like that, and the floor and the stairs. You can kind of see where this is already going. What I want to do today, right, is push this, you know, one notch further into you know, probably where I would not like, it's not going to be modeled to the degree that that I've done things before, right? Like with the dune buggy, for example, that was a lot further. But I am going to take this a little bit further with that variation, right? And trying to show you where I would end the variation. I usually kind of take I usually use this pass to kind of like, you know, push into just showing how I would do that variation. You've already seen me do that with like the camera and all that stuff. So I actually kind of want to show you how far I would actually take things before I would start to paint, essentially. And this is going to be a more basic version, right? I could take this 100%, not 100, like not modeling 100, but concept 100, right? In terms of like for modeling for a concept artist, right? But we're not going to do that. We're going to kind of do a little more painting in this for this assignment, right? Just so everybody can kind of keep up, essentially. But yeah, so let's get into it. A lot of explaining, a lot of just random thoughts throughout the week, right? But overall, it's just evolving the designs, right? Just making sure that when we do something, there's reasons, right? I had this. This is pretty cool. I had the roof like this before, because if you remember from not this was gone basically, right? It was like that, but I had it like that, and I was kind of growing it, and I was like, you know, I don't know if I like that. Like, you know, I was trying to think like, how do I bring back that idea of the roof, you know? So I just started like kind of duplicating things and making things like bigger, and you know what I mean, like kind of bigger and more complicated and this and that. And so, you know, as you're going through your designs, right? Oops, let's just do that correctly. There it is. As you're going through your designs, right? This is kind of where we need to slow down and kind of think things through, right? There's a, you know, at the beginning when I was doing like these designs, right? It's just kind of me grabbing stuff, you know? It's just me kind of like getting pieces. And you saw me, like I did this piece and I flattened it down. And I think I got like this piece, and then that's the same piece as that, which is the same piece as this down there. And then this is just a cylinder with some walls extruded, so on and so forth, right? It's like, you know, just slapping things together. But as you go deeper, as you're creating that variation, think one level deeper, right? You're trying to create not just a variation on the idea, but also improve that idea, figure out what pieces are missing, figure out, you know, what you do and don't like. You know, I guess as we're kind of getting into here, I kind of fly around so you can kind of see. You know, I created some of that roof structure in there, or the ceiling structure in there, and then some of these walls. They're gonna be like, there's gonna be like art and stuff on these walls. There's like screen doors, you know, there's like pillars, stuff like that. It's like staircases, and we want to kind of up this complexity, you know, one more notch before we kind of call it a final, right? But you know, this is kind of where we're going. So, but yeah, let's get into this. I think this would be kind of a long demo today, so we got an hour and a half left. If you have questions, right, let me know. I'd love to talk about some things that you guys have going on. I do have a couple topics I do want to bring up that just throughout the week, you know, either from like mentorship stuff or like from just meeting up friends and stuff like that. So, but yeah, let's do this. All right, so. First step, I have I was kind of working on the roof a little bit, and as you can tell, right, there's a bit more complexity to it. There's little things here and there that are like, that's a little more interesting, but I need to kind of start figuring out the rest, right? This is when you kind of want to start looking up reference. You want to start kind of like giving it that second level of information, right? Before, like the gutter structure didn't matter, the pillar structure didn't matter, the staircase didn't matter. Just knowing that they were there was good enough. But now, right, you're kind of getting into it a little bit more, so you want to create stuff that actually kind of works, you know. So let's see. I do have a problem here, right? There's something interesting going on that I want to show you. not a problem, but things, you know. All right, so let's get into this. With Yeah, this is a good picture. There you go. I'm looking up Google right now. Sorry. All right, with roof structures, right? Obviously, there's a level of stylization happening here that I'm just not going to be able to achieve in the model, right? I'd have to sit down and actually model that out. But what I do want to say is there's a structure here with the way they kind of layer tiles and stuff, right? There's a system. This exists for a reason, right? They don't just freestyle it. There's a puzzle here, right? And so when you're looking at your images, right? You're trying to design your stuff and trying to get that like one notch deeper, right? What you want to do is start breaking down what pieces are necessary and what pieces aren't, right? Something that you'll always see, right? Every time you see this tiled roof, there's always like a cap structure, right? There's always a structure at the top that kind of covers that seam line because they all meet up there. At the top of that roof, they're all layered to where it would meet up there, but there's just a gap in between that, and so they cover that with this thing, right? There's names for all of this. I'm not 100% sure what the names are, but there's names for all of it, and there's reasons, right? Even the images here on the end cap of it has a reason to be there. And so all these little things, you want to start representing them and start seeing like how can you create something that is reminiscent of that, but isn't like 100% that, right? Because we do have an issue now, right? Where, like I was saying before, there's a gap here, right? There's this intersection right here, and there's the outer section right there, right? It's a kind of gap that kind of goes inwards because it's a bowl. It catches stuff. And so I kind of need that gap to be there. But I don't want things to just end the way I kind of have it here, right? I just, it's just kind of like, it just weirdly stops. You know what I mean? So I need to figure out something to kind of make that look better, to end better, And this is where, every time you do that, same with like these railings, like these kind of thinner things, they're not exactly where I want them to be. So, I need to improve them somehow. Little things like that, right? Go in there and figure out the rest, right? It's little things that, that kind of make things a little more realistic, where the design, it's the same thought process. It's just kind of morphed differently. You know what I'm saying? So, may I ask, if we keep changing stuff, how do we know when to stop if there is no one to ask for feedback? Yeah, that's true, right? I think that is difficult. I think something, the question in the Discord is basically in regards to like, when we're making adjustments and like constantly adapting from one thing to the next, how do we know when to stop? I know you said in when there's nobody for feedback, but I answer with feedback first, right? It's usually when your art director kind of says you're done, right? But there's things that need to be addressed by the end of the design, right? So for example, the whole parameter behind this building was there's kind of things falling, there's water falling into the top, and then it's overflowing, this and that, right? There's a whole system kind of happening. And so when that system has been addressed, when every kind of gap has been kind of figured out, that's usually when I stop, right? I try not to add too much more to this. I try not to like think of a different way it's happening. There's one main thing happening, which is water is going to be falling into this top, which is basically this whole building is a container for water. And so I want to make sure that we address that one idea, right? Everything else is extra. Set dressing and stuff, we'll figure that out later, right? That's like a tertiary step. But in the secondary step, what we want to do is make sure that we're addressing all of the main problems, because if there's a animation of this building, right, in like if this is like going to be a project, for example, what's going to happen is they're going to start animating it, and they're going to be like, oh, hey, there's a problem. If we do this is going to happen, and there's no real, like, it's going to look kind of weird kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to work, essentially. And so what we need to do is just address those things. Once you get that, you're probably going to be in a pretty good spot. Once you're once you kind of answer a lot of those questions, that's usually when I stop. It is a tough kind of bar to find, I will say. It's because when you're in a professional setting, you have art directors, you have people kind of either bringing up this question or saying it looks good, move forward, right? But in a home setting, what I try to do is I just do whatever I can in each stage, and I know what stage needs what. So, for example, ideation phase, right? I know I'm bringing in as many ideas as possible, right? It's like as many different ones, so I'm making different models. Variation stage, I might create one where the lid kind of like has that latch on it, so it like kind of opens up or whatever, right? I might create one that does that, but I also might create one that has a whole different system to it, right? But overall, it's the same building and then it's the same lid, it's just doing it differently, right? So the level of ideas become more structured, or I guess more tight, right? It's like instead of revising the entire building shape, I'm revising little pieces here and there. And I might make like 3 or 4 versions of this. But then after you get out of that variation phase, I try to fight the urge to actually include anything brand new, right? I'll include like set dressing and textures and stuff, but any new function things, I won't do it just because it kind of it can go on forever, right? Kind of like what you're saying. It won't stop if you don't know when to kind of not add those ideas anymore. So each phase has a purpose, right? Once you establish, hey, I'm done with with my variation stage, I'm moving into rendering. You have to mentally stop adding ideas, right? But you have to decide when it's enough, and that's it's up to taste. I think at the beginning, maybe set a timeline for yourself. Maybe set. I'm gonna spend a week on this design. I'm gonna spend a week kind of doing variations, and then pick one, and then move on. But when you move on, right, try not to like take that any further. You know what I mean? Yeah, good question. Cool. How's it going, people? How's Discord life treating you? Let me close these things. There you go. Cool. All right. So, what I want to do now, right? There's some little things here and there that I want to start figuring out. I kind of want to start making this into the scene, as well as like, it's not going to be like 100% of a scene or anything, but there is going to be some other things that kind of happen in this space, right? I think, one of the major things that we want to do is, like I was saying, start addressing some of those inconsistencies, right? So I'm going to kind of start modeling here and just see what happens, you know what I mean? So let's see, what I want to do, I want to end this, right? This mesh cylinder, boom. Oh, is this in the center still? Oh, sorry. Delete that, Shift C, there it is. Shift A, mesh, cylinder, all right. I'm going to try to not take this model too far. I think today is going to be a bit of a slower day, I will say, just because we're going to be, it's going to hopefully get to a point to where we've kind of addressed a lot of the issues, right? And then we're just going to get into, I guess, doing like materials and stuff, and so on and so forth. But I think for now, it's understanding that we're just trying to address some of these main problems. That way we don't have to like paint it later. You know what I mean? It's like, it's going to be, it just makes it more, I don't want to say more difficult, but it just makes it a kind of a pain to kind of address a lot of these things in the paint when you could have just did it in the actual like thing, Boom. Oh, let's go this way. There you go. I'm trying to find a way to like end this, like to cap off this roof shape without obscuring the kind of main idea that we're talking about, right? Boom. Let's see. Let's go here. Actually, hold up. 3. How's like I guess for those for those here, are you guys in summer right now? Is that like I guess is a lot of people on break right now, or is it just kind of like we're just it's just business as usual? Just curious. Just curious how like a lot of you guys treat like your summers. You know what I mean? I think for me, when I was going to school, I don't remember. I never did summer break. You know, like we had summer break because that's when school ended, kind of thing. You know, but I never like. I just kind of continued doing art. You know, just curious how you guys handle that. Because we're in like what, July right now. So most of you, if you're going to art school, you know, like how are you? Do you like take that break? You know, because either like semesterly or whatever. You know, just curious. For those of you that are here in the Discord.
Yeah, no, I think like for summers, it's always been like the time to maybe explore an aspect of art that wasn't really covered in the semester, or like work on personal projects and things like that.
Oh, dope. Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great like time to do things. You know, it's a really, I feel like with school, it's really hard to like because you're taking a class, right? You're learning a thing, whatever the topic is, and then like it gets really hard to, I don't know, find time to apply it because when you go into the next term, right, or whatever, usually you're kind of doing something like completely different. You know what I mean? And like you kind of run into this like you never really address some of those issues that were brought up maybe during the finals, right? Like I'll give like a crit or my finals, and then it'll be like, you know, we'll never address that again just because you know why the student never had a chance to address it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, no, I agree. Anybody else? I saw some other mics go open up. Just curious.
We were talking yesterday, Kenny, right? So I'm just teaching for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Recently graduated. But I kind of view summertime as like it's go time, right? Like you have fewer distractions, you have a little more time to like kind of hone in on stuff and just especially if you're like me sometimes and it's like, "Oh, crap, I'm too slow at doing this thing or something." It's like, "Awesome, now I have extra time to kind of, make that count." It's like a project where you kind of have an extended deadline, it feels like, where you can put in the extra hours you want on stuff. It's kind of
Yeah.
nice.
I guess for those that are in like university, how long is summer break? That's like what, 2 months, right? Like what you get most of June, all of July, most of August, right? So 3 months ish. That's what, 12 weeks to kind of do whatever, you know. That's a good amount of time. I feel. I remember when I was at Nome and we had it because we had a summer break as well. It wasn't that long. There's 4 terms at Nome, and it's like a more it's kind of an all year thing. But there's like 5 or 6 weeks in between each thing, and like we would at the beginning we would just be at the school literally until they closed, until they like literally wouldn't let us in anymore, you know, and it was just like you couldn't get rid of us, you know, like me and a couple of my term mates, we were just there like every day, you know, and then if we couldn't be at school, we would literally be at somebody's house, right, like just or whoever's apartment or whatever, doing the same things, you know. Yeah, I don't know how healthy that was, you know. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it's funny how like you know, we use like how I guess I don't know how much you can get done in that amount of time, because I think like I I learned how to, like, my friend was teaching me how to oil paint, you know. He was we would sit down in his apartment and we just like oil paint like every night, you know, for just the whole entire break, you know. And it was really cool. I really enjoyed those times. Yeah, I think summer break was really nice because you finally have that chance to apply whatever it is that you learned, you know, whatever it is that whatever teacher kind of taught you, you know, during that time. So it was always really nice. Let's see, set origin geometry. The reason I asked this is it's interesting, I guess, seeing like the differences. And I think it's funny as a student, and even like as an early professional, I really was very much into the idea of like, kind of every every I don't want to say every waking moment, but it really was like every chance I got was like go and do art, do something art related, art adjacent, you know what I mean? And it was, I'm not saying it's bad, it's not, but as I go deeper into this career path, right? It kind of starts becoming like, I don't know, it's just like I kind of start, I don't know, like rethinking a lot of those decisions, like I'm not, I'm here today because of those decisions, right? So I'm not like super complaining about it, but I feel like something I wanted to talk about today was, oopsies, set origin to 3D cursor. That's what I want. So something that I've noticed that's been happening recently more so than others, right? Is like the more I step away from art, the better I get at it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's weird. It's like, because before, like during my schooling life, right? It was always like, go 100%. It's like, we're dashing to the finish line essentially, right? Because the whole idea is get a job, and that's true to an extent, right? I definitely don't disagree with that. But then like as I'm getting older, and I'm starting to like kind of value other things a bit more, you know what I mean? Like life balance, things, hobbies, whatever. It's starting to get to that point to where like I'm actively searching out like I don't know, like other hobbies and things that aren't as art adjacent as like photography or like painting or something. You know what I'm saying? Like it's still art, like but it's not like so directly tied into what I do, right? Because everything before was like everything I do needs to tie into my career, and if I'm not doing that, then you're kind of wasting time, and it's a trap that I see a lot of people fall into, just because it's really easy to think that way, you know what I mean? I think as a student, you got to do whatever you need to do. You have to kind of like get to that point of, you got to get employed basically, because we're all looking for work, right? But after a certain amount of time, I've been learning that as I kind of step away from art, I've been getting better at it, just because it makes me it like expands my understanding of things, like every time I do something different, that thought process transfers into my career somehow. Like, and it's not even like I guess specifically like art things, like, just learning how to manage your money better, learning how to manage your time better, learning how to, just do random things, like cooking, just things like that. Like the more you kind of like step out of that art realm, the bigger that understanding of just general things kind of gets, because as artists, right, we're always trying to replicate life, right? Because whether you're doing character design, that's an actual person, you got to meet people. Whether you're an environment designer, you got to be out in the world because you're designing worlds. You got to know what the world's like, a lot of things like that. And it's so interesting, like how, the better you get at life, the better you get at art, right? Because that's what we do, and it's funny because like the worst kind of behavior is not behavior. I don't say worst kind of behavior, but the worst mindset that an artist can have is the predominant mindset that artists have, right? Like, the whole idea is we want to be inside. We want to draw. That's why we're good at drawing, because we stayed inside and didn't do shit. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of that, because we just drew all day. You just drew inside. and we didn't experience the world. But then as concept artists, you have to like get out and see the world to be able to replicate it effectively, you know. And it's such a funny conundrum to be in, you know, as artists. And because I get this question a lot of like, how do you improve your visual library? You know, I think I get that question like every time I have a class of any sort. It's always, how do I increase my visual library? Because you know, we always want to you know, like we just want to be able to like reference things better, right? Because you know, even me, like whenever I'm like teaching class or whatever, or like doing crits, they're like, oh, how'd you know about that? You know, that's such a random thing. It's like, I mean, I just figured it out. You know, I just like came across the information and it's been sitting in my brain for, you know, however long, you know what I mean? Like, it's weird. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's just like, you just read things, you see an article on a thing, and you're like, oh, that's weird, and then you leave it at that, right? It's just like it's really that simple. It's just like I don't know, it's just what it is. And then I don't know, like 2 or 3 years later, you know, you come across that information again, and you not come across it again, but it becomes relevant all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's such a weird thing that we do, you know. I guess like the idea of art. Oops, there you go.
I guess it kind of has to do with your visual library too, right? Or even beyond visual, just like ideas of things. And like, if you're stuck looking at ArtStation all day, it's gonna be really hard to actually design something correctly, because then you're just gonna be pulling, you know, that same kind of idea that somebody pulled from somebody that pulled from somebody that really likes Ghost in the Shell like 20 years ago or something like that, right?
Yeah, right. That's the idea, right? It's kind of like the problem that AI faces, right? Where if it references itself too much, you know, it just blows up, right? It's like we're the same thing, you know. It's the same thing that we do, right? If you reference like bad function and like just things that don't work, right, in a real life setting, the more farther and farther you get away from that kind of base point of real life, it kind of turns into something else, right? A big reason why whenever I'm you know, when we teach class and we're like, hey, look up reference that's real, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, I can look up, you know, like you're saying, I can look up Ghost in the Shell, I'll use that as a reference. But in reality, that's a design that's been manipulated and pushed to do certain things. And then if you reference that as the base, and then the next time you design something, you're going to push that further, and then it just starts like deforming into something like completely unrecognizable, you know.
I was talking with
oh,
sorry,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, you finish. Go.
I was talking with one of my kind of friends slash mentors. I really respect this guy a lot. Right, we're good friends, but he said something once when we were talking like helmet design. He's like, well, you know, there's only yeah, because he mainly does like costumes for film. Like that's kind of been what his focus has been in things, and he's really good at it, and he's been really successful doing it. But he said something to the effect of, well, you know, these days there's only so many ways you can really design a helmet. You know, there's really not like an infinity of options. And I was like, man, I don't know. I didn't like tell him off because, you know, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I respect him a lot. I was kind of thinking like, man, maybe not with that mindset. Like, I don't know, that's a really bad way to think, right? It'd be like, nah, you know, we've explored everything there is. I'm like, no way. There's got to be, you know, more. You just got to dig in a different way. Maybe if you were there, you know, mainstream, what comes to mind for a director, but I would like to hope that there's still a lot of fresh ground there that just hasn't been discovered.
No, man, dude, that's how it always is, man. Like there's the saying, right? It was Henry Ford or somebody, whereas like if you asked the public what they wanted, they'd want a faster horse, not a car. You know what I mean? Like, it's that idea, because you know, it's just something where, you know, you have to create, like, just there's so many new ideas and people don't know what they want. And if you kind of just assume that like we're at the peak level of information or peak level of design that happens, you know, it's like there's so many unique ways to see things, you know. Just and especially like I think there's a like with inventions that's even harder, right? Because it's like there's a physicality that needs to be achieved, right? There's engineering, there's, you know, all sorts of that. It's real, right? With things that they build. For us, dude, it's like you could make whatever. You know, you could do whatever you want because half the time, like this building is going to be flooded with water. That makes zero sense. You know, that's dumb. Like in real life, that's the dumbest thing you could do, you know? Because it's like, oh, how about that flood damage? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one mishap, one leaky gasket, you know, ruins the entire building. But it's like, you know, we're doing art. Who cares? You know, it looks cool. And like, I think some, not that this is like the most original design or anything, but the whole point is, you know, you could do whatever it is you want to do, and you can just make it happen, you know. And the cool thing about art is that we can see those new designs that that can't really be made, right? You can't build, or you shouldn't. I don't know if you can't, but you shouldn't build a building like this in real life because that's not smart, right? That's challenged behavior. But if you know, if you're like, you know, if you just painted it, it's not a big deal. People still get to see the design. People still get to experience it, but, you know, in a more, you know, controlled manner, right? But the thing too is that I think something about design, right, that I think we get confused a lot is like that everything needs to be the most brand new thing that you've ever seen. You know, it's like the most unique and most interesting thing in the world. You know, I really don't feel that's the case. I feel like design needs to be unique for the situation. You know what I mean? Like, it's only different because of the way it's being used, or it's only different because or the only reason why we make a design is because it fits the prompt, fits the narrative. We need a building that does this. We need a a spaceship that does this. But that doesn't mean that, like, you know, it's that you know, it has to be the most unique thing in the world. It just needs to fit the prompt, you know. As designer, like as a concept artist, like very very rarely have I ever been in a scenario where they're like, I need something that we've never seen before, you know. I need something that the public is gonna gasp at, you know. Usually it's this is the function that we need this thing to serve, and then, you know, we kind of like go from there, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very it's not as like, so it's not so like, it's not the this kind of utopia of the most interesting designs the world has ever witnessed, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's really, I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but that's the general idea. Let's go this way. Hold up.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like the commercial reality of it all, right? Is like, in the end of the day, it's kind of, it's a trade, right? And you're delivering a service.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to like fix the pipes. You got to do the plumbing, right? They want like pipes with like some kind of weird ASUS RGB lighting. They just want the pipes to work. Makes sense.
Yeah, you know, and it's like, it's there's this, I don't know, like, I think the ideas need, like, in my opinion, the designs need to service the story, right? Because designs don't stand on their own. Just looking at something isn't the thing. It's the moment that you experience the thing in. It's the story that happens around it. You know, a lot of iconic designs are kind of like a lot of the iconic designs and stuff are really iconic because of the moments that they're in, you know. The story points that happen around it, right? Star Wars isn't super iconic because of the cut lines and things like that. It's iconic because of the story that we experience. You know, same with like Blade Runner, same with, you know, Dune and stuff. Like, a lot of the cool designs don't stand on their own. they're supported by interesting narrative, you know. Lego Animations is how long you've been doing this, bro? Doing this 3D thing like this. What was that app? What was that anyway? The app? Oh, so this is Blender. For those that don't know, it's a free app. You can Blender 3D. You can download it. It comes Mac and Windows. How long have I been doing this? This specifically, this career path, or like this blockout has been going on for, I guess, I mean, I'd say 2 weeks because we did it last week, but really, like the amount of hours total would probably be like 4 or 5, you know. But not even just this, like the whole thing, the first 3 ideas plus this. So this has probably been like maybe 2 hours at most. So yeah, you know. As far as working goes, I'm working for like almost 10 years now. So if that's what you're asking, I don't know. But yeah. Okay, let's see. What do I want? What do I need? Let's go here. I've been messing with this thing. I'm trying to get this to feel... Actually, hold up. The reason I did that because I wanted to do this. Bring that up. Hide that. So when you do something destructive and something where you're like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. Duplicate it and then do it. It's going to save your ass so many times. You have no idea how many times I've done that where I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then it just didn't work out. And then you're like, that wasn't as cool as I thought it would be. I don't like those there. I'm going to shrink those down. Can I rotate those? Probably can. I'll come back to that. Let's turn that off for now. That's kind of cool. It's getting somewhere. I like where it's going. I like the cut of your jib. Let's see. Any other questions? There's like 10 people here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. All right, so let's see. Hold up. Let me make all these selections, and then we'll get on to the next topic. So, it's going back to the visual library idea, right? Because I was the reason I bring this up. I was talking to a friend this past week, and you know, it's interesting because like when you interact with people, you always get like these different kind of points of views, you know. Like oh, what's happening there? Is that cool? Is that cool at all? No, that's too much. That's weird, right? That's too complicated. Anyway, so when I interact with people, I just kind of talk just to catch up, this and that, so on and so forth, and like I really like just hearing people's stories and like just just seeing kind of like what they've like done and things that they've been through, you know, because like it's so informative for me as an artist, you know, as somebody that like, because we have very limited kind of experiences on our own, right? Because you know you're just a person, you're just one single individual, right? But like whenever I interact with other artists, you know, students, professionals, doesn't matter, right? Just people in general, you always kind of get this, I always kind of walk away with it with such an interesting like perspective on things. And, you know, when we were in class, it was always like, you know, how do we figure out how to, like, what's the best way to kind of like improve our visual library, you know? Like because every single time, it was always like, let's do some studies, you know what I mean? Let's, you know, let's sit down and we'll kind of break down Roman architecture, you know what I mean? Like that was a big one. That one, Byzantine, you know, Japanese, right? You know, just architecture styles in general. It's not that I don't think those are useful, but I mean, yeah, it's probably true. I don't find those very useful, you know, because it's it's so like it's so limiting, you know. I find that like I don't retain the information very well. I don't know about you guys, but like I think for me, whenever I sit down and do studies like that, like I'm like, you know, you get a piece of paper out, and then um, you know, you're kind of drawing, and you're like, you just look up a book and you just copy a building, you know what I mean? Like I find that so it doesn't like stick in my brain. I don't know, maybe I'm just dumb, who knows. But like whenever I do a project or I go actually experience a thing, you know what I mean? I find that it kind of, I retain things so much better, you know? The reason I say all this is because recently I just went to, recently I just went to Osaka. We went to Osaka Castle, right? Just to kind of check it out. For one, it was just a kind of place to go like see and do things. But two, it was I'm, you know, doing things with architecture that is Japanese of sorts, right? And so I mean, like always, but you know, anyway. And it's like just going to go like see this thing, you know, just going out and like touching it. I didn't touch all of it because they don't allow you to do that, but I was seeing it. I got a lot of pictures, and you kind of get a real up close view of it. And it just gives you so many different ideas, you know. And I think like whenever I was in school, we'd sit down, we'd do like, okay, let's do architecture studies, guys, and then we just did it, right? We just opened a book and did a thing, and like it was cool. I guess maybe it worked. I don't know, but I'd never used that information ever again. Like I remember I did Roman architecture for a project, like for not for a project, sorry, for like just studying. I had a whole like 3 or 4 pages on like drawing columns and doing things, and like I don't think I've ever done a Roman architecture project. Maybe I might have done one, and you could, you know, like you could probably like interpret it as a Greek architecture instead. You know what I mean? Like maybe, you know, but like I don't know. I did these studies before, and it never really mattered, you know. And I think like the reason I say this is because so many students will kind of like really, they'll come up to me and they'll be like, hey, I need to, you know, I need to increase my visual library. And I think for me, the best thing is like just go outside. You know, everybody has some cool stuff around them. Like you know, there's, you know, some places are cooler than others. I'm not denying that, but there is a level of like every place has something cool. Every place has something interesting. I was sitting in an alleyway this past Monday, and we were just looking at like the wall, and there was like this. It was like this older building, but then a newer shop kind of took over. You know, like the whole place was kind of renovated, and then like you could see the old conduit pipe that was there. You just see the brackets now. You don't actually see the pipe anymore. You see the stain on the wall or I guess the lack of stain, because there's a exposed wall versus unexposed wall type of thing, and like little things like that, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't never notice that about this. Or like seeing like the ground, how there was like there's this kind of floor, and it had this kind of stone kind of tile work, and then there was like this weird metal grate in it. Or even the fact that all the chairs were on one side of the whole alleyway, right? So one side was basically a walkway, one side was the seating, and it was so interesting to see all those things. And you know, it has nothing to do with like anything specific to Japan. It's just a normal ass place, you know. It wasn't even like like this wasn't at the castle. This was just at a cafe we were just sitting at. And like little things like that really do go a long way when it comes to your visual library, right? Because a lot of the stuff that we'll call out, it's like, you know, when I tell people like set dressing in class and stuff, I'm like, look for those small things, because the big stuff you'll find that online. You know, you need a roof structure. I looked one up like, you know, 10 minutes ago or whenever it was, just to kind of figure out what that roof structure thing is doing. But it's a lot of those small things that you're never gonna see, you know. there's these moments that you're just never going to experience from a photo, because why would anybody take a picture of that? You know, you'd have to like really identify it. You know, somebody in the chat says I guess it'd be more difficult if you live in a place that doesn't really have interesting things to see. You know, it's like there is a level of like, yes, part of it's like, you know, some of the architecture might not be as interesting, right? But the thing to understand about this, right, about world building and visual library, that's just the general understanding of all of it, right, is that all of these things are universal, right? Like a lot of it really is like, it's just observing, because the same crack in the sidewalk that happens here in Japan, right, is the same crack in the sidewalk that was happening in LA. You know, it's just, you know, old infrastructure. It's trees that are rooting that kind of push up the sidewalk or whatever. It's all universal, but it's things that we don't think about, because in art, it's always the most ideal version of whatever it is, right? It's like the most brand new, most interesting part of, you know, whatever it is that, you know, whatever you're currently designing, right? Because that's what we focus on. We focus on the most you know, like as we're building it from scratch, but we're not weathering it. You know, we're not like walking through the general I don't know, the patterns that life kind of throws at things. You know what I'm saying? It's I don't know. It's just something where I'm going out and experiencing these things really does go a long way. You know, it's something that just go outside. You know, like wherever you're at, go to a coffee shop, go to somewhere, go to a restaurant, who cares, right? But look around, actually look, you know, look and see, like, you know, what can I include that actually makes this interesting, you know? And don't just do it once. Don't go out and like the visual library doesn't build off of one instance where you went and, you know, observed these things. It's built off of many repetitive observations, right? It's like something about the best and possibly worst thing about being like an artist, right, is that you're always doing it, you know, whether you know it or not, right? It's like whether you're conscious of it or not, you know, you want to always be just observing and like seeing things as a world builder, right? Like I have to look at the world and be like, oh, that's weird, you know, like it's funny, I'll look at environment, like we're going on a road trip in LA. This was about a year ago or whatever. We were driving home from Joshua Tree National Park in LA area. Anyway, so we were driving home and we were going through this kind of mountainous area, and then like I was looking at the sky, I was like, that looks fake as fuck, you know, like is, you know, looking at the real sky and thinking that looks like a bad CG comp. You know what I mean? Like it's really weird. You know, like, yeah, that shouldn't have, it's the real thing. That's the sky. That's it. You know, and it's so it was such a interesting thing to kind of see, or even seeing like when you look in the sky, you're like, that cloud's super tangenty. You know, like that doesn't. Like I would never do that. I get shot for something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's it's kind of what comes into mind oftentimes where, you know, because I'm so used to just seeing these things, but you know, realizing like it's okay to kind of, you know, just do for one to do some of those things, and two, like just kind of, I guess, always being aware, you know, because I had this I had a mentorship this past week, and I was talking, I mean, it's not specific to him or anything, but you know, just talk. I say this in all my mentorships. It's when you experience something, right? When you have a feeling of any sort, whether it's like sadness, inspiration, whether it's whatever, right? What you want to do is think not just the fact that you're experiencing it, but why. You know what I mean? Why does it feel that way? When you like look at that sunset and you shed a tear, whatever, I don't know, I'm not saying I do, but like, you know, whenever like, you know, you have that double rainbow moment, you want to like stop and be like, wait, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, hey, why am I feeling like this? Because when you design, We aren't designing the things, right? Because if I put a double rainbow into a painting, that's not exactly it, right? Like it's not exactly the only thing that was happening. It's a combination of everything that I'm experiencing in that moment. Does that make sense? You know, it's like when you're, you know, a rainy day doesn't just include rain, right? Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? When it's you know when it's like water's literally falling from the sky, right? That's a rainy day, but it's the light, you know, the way that uh, it's kind of like diffused because it's probably cloudy because rain, clouds, right? Makes sense. And then it's probably dark. Things are like very reflective. A lot of specularity kind of happening. There's a temperature difference, right? It's feeling, generally speaking, colder. Japan, it gets hotter, which is fucking nuts. But that's a whole different complaint. You know, and it's like all these little things. It kind of builds up into the moment, you know. And when you paint, if I said, "Hey, paint a rainy day for me," you know, cool. Let me get my rain brush and apply it across the top of this sunny day painting. It doesn't work that way because that's not it. That's not the thing. You know, that's not what we're doing. And so it's you want to kind of paint that moment, figure out all the different aspects that kind of make that moment true, right? Same reason why we go and do plein air painting. For those that haven't plein air painting, and you're going to be an environment artist or shit, even a character designer, go and plein air paint. Do it, right? Same reason why character artists should probably be go out and do like some cafe sketching where you're drawing people, you know, real people, like actual existing human beings. You know what I mean? Because that's who you're designing. Those are the people that are, you know, in this world. That's the people that are you're going to be creating and, you know, putting on a page. It's a real person, you know. It's not just somebody wearing a costume. It's somebody that lives, thinks, behaves a certain way, you know. Same with environments, right? We go out and do plein air because we have to replicate a lot of these experiences. You know, when they say, "Hey, I need a sunset in the winter in the snowy place," right? Like, you know, I needed you to paint a snowy environment, and then the theme's kind of sunset, right? And if you paint a scene that's like, you know, more of a summery sunset, we don't know why. You know, generally speaking, people don't always know why they feel a certain way about something, but they know that it's not it, right? There's a feeling. It's like, oh yeah, that like, I don't know, that kind of like low, kind like the purple kind of like takes over a little more because everything's white, right? Because everything is covered in snow, so there's there's more color transmission across things and so on and so forth, versus like the warm summer kind of has this like, I don't know, it's just different, you know what I'm saying? And you got to go and know what those things are, because when you go and paint, right, that's we're creating that emotion, right? We're creating that experience for our audience. George says, yeah, I have a gig right now where they want me to paint up Hawaiian landscapes that will be animated in After Effects for a corporate conference. And of course, I could paint from photos of the internet, but it didn't give me the level of connection to the environment if I was there. So I booked some tickets and went to Hawaii for a couple of days, took my own photos, did some plein air studies. It really got a feel for the colors and lighting than a secondhand account through someone else's photo. Yes, you know, I mean, that's on the extreme side for sure, right? That's the straight up like you just went to Hawaii, right? And you know, it's not always possible, right? That is definitely one of the best things you can do. The reason why like a lot of like these old Disney movies, or most Disney movies do this, but when they go out and they're researching, they like the beginning of the project, the main core team, right, the leads and stuff like that, they go to these places and experience these things. Then it's important because you have to know what it feels like, because the people that like this content probably go to this place. You know what I'm saying? Like, it sounds crazy, but people that are interested in Japan probably have been to Japan. You know what I'm saying? Like, generally speaking. So when you create, you know, stuff for your world, you want to create stuff that, you know, kind of like is true to form, right? It's like it makes sense. and like it's something where people will call you out, right? Same reason why Call of Duty people call out bad design. Like Call of Duty doesn't do it, as far as I'm aware. They're better at it now because it's been however many games, so many teams, stuff, so on and so forth. But if you pull out like a old World War One gun in a World War II game or vice versa or whatever, it turns heads. You know what I mean? It's not exactly how you should kind of go about that, and it can cause problems. With George's example, that's definitely on the extreme side. That's an expensive research trip, but it's possible to kind of do that. Like a lot of people live near a coast, right? Go to a beach. It doesn't have to be the beach, but it can be a beach, right? Do the best you can. Yeah, and you're right. Tax write-off. It's like if you go and for anybody doing art, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a CPA, so just so you know. But a lot of this stuff can be a tax write-off. If you go on a trip that is directly linked to a project, that's work things. You could be doing vacation things on there, but you're also gathering photos, gathering reference, so on and so forth. It becomes this really nice thing that for one, you get a cool vacation, two, new experience, three, more information for the project that you need to be working on. Cool. Let's see now. All right, I've been working on this roof a little too long. Let's go on. Let's go to something else. I kind of like. I like how simple a lot of this thing is, right? Like something that's kind of nice, like this kind of bottom section being like 30%, and this being like about 70% of the design. Maybe I can make that a little taller. Let's grab all that. And like something I like to do whenever I'm going through my designs and stuff, check those things, right? Sometimes, because whenever I started this design, it was, we had, more or less like this, right? Obviously with less detail, various other things, but the roof structure was a lot thinner. And so with this new kind of addition that I did, and then, kind of further increasing things, those proportions do get out of whack. It is something that you do have to be careful of. So just keep that in mind. It's not like, the biggest deal in the world. Like you're still pretty close as long as you're not making like drastic changes. Like super like wide changing things, right? But as long as you're kind of close, you're probably going to be fine, but just check it, right? Something that can happen a lot is your design kind of gets away from you, right? I do this a lot where I'll be doing something and like mentally, especially in 3D, like particularly in 3D, right? There's oftentimes I'll be doing stuff and it just kind of gets away from you, It's just an issue that I have with 3D oftentimes is because if you don't have a general idea of what the reason I keep like checking it from like back here, like I keep going to this particular angle. I should probably set up a camera for that, but I'll find the front door, which is these 4 openings right there, 3 openings right there. I'll kind of like do a 3/4 view because that's probably what it's going to look like whenever I get there, and so what I'm trying to do is just make sure that everything I do kind of maintains that those proportions that I kind of established, right? I've had so many projects go wrong where I kind of started somewhere where it's like it looks pretty good, it's not terrible, but then like it just kind of gets out of hand and you don't realize it. And 3D is a big culprit of this because if you oops, set origin 3D cursor. if you're not careful, it can get very you can kind of get out of that scope pretty quickly, Rotate. Let's do 60. Yeah, let's do that. We'll get 61. There you go. Sweet. There you go. 6 is better. 6 matches my thing better. I I had this conversation a little while back. I think I might have talked about this before, but it's so it I find it so important, right? Especially because like we as artists just we kind of like like I don't know what, maybe it's just me, who knows, maybe I'm just maybe I'm just weird, who knows, but I you kind of get into this zone of like I'm good at art and that's what I do. You know what I mean? Like I think something a big thing that I'm kind of going through right now is is I guess growing into new things. You know what I mean? Like as an artist, our thing, right? Because the question usually is like, oh, hey, what's your talent? You know, what are you good at? And our, you know, as artists, it's always, oh, I'm good at drawing. You know, and it's always like, you know, because you know I'm an artist, that's what I do. I draw, and I'm good at that. That's my skill, right? Because you've been working on it for however many years or whatever it is, right? Whatever the case may be. Generally speaking, you're good at art, right? We know this. Most of us are like generally speaking in a normal room. You're the better artist in the room, right? Like when it came to like in high school or you know in just in school in general, not art school and not work settings. Generally speaking, you're the best artist around because you're the only one that drew that much as a kid, right? But as we're getting like better, we start kind of running into this cap where you're for one you're no longer like that good in a room because everybody else in that same room is like as good as you are, if not better, most of the time better, right? Let's be real. And it's a terrible feeling, you know. It's like because the thing that you're good at, it's not that it gets taken away from you, but like it you can't rely on it anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like because like there's like a for example at studios they'll do like, oh hey, you know what's they'll do like talent show or you know they'll do like you know things that I guess what's this hair on my face, sorry. They'll do this thing where it's just like, oh, a company thing where you kind of just have a slight talent show, right? And then a lot of the artists are like, oh yeah, well my talent was drawing, but we don't want to see that because we see that every day, you know, that kind of thing, you know what I mean? And it kind of sucks, you know. And I think I was having a conversation with one of my students, and you know, it was like, oh, how do I get better from here, you know? And I was like, literally, man, the best thing you could do to get better at things, at other things, is like go do something else. You know, go learn how to get good at something, some other thing. You know, and it's funny because like I had a couple friends where they would you know we've been pursuing art for however many years, whatever, right? Like just school stuff, right? And then when they start working they kind of like start getting into other hobbies, whether it's like music, whether it's like whatever, right? Just things. And they get better at it. And in turn, it gets them better at art. You know what I mean? It's so interesting. Like, you know, because you start learning how to learn. It sounds kind of funny to say it that way, but like, you know, the act of learning anything, like most things, you learn it the exact same way. You know what I mean? You learn the fundamentals, you learn the basics of whatever it is, right? The techniques, you know, you kind of start off with equipment, you know, it's like for the first thing is what kind of computer I need, what kind of tablet I need, and none of that shit matters. And you realize that. And then you start learning the fundamentals like drawing, painting, right? And like whatever other thing that you're trying to learn, it kind of becomes that, those fundamentals, you know, whether it's like cooking, whether it's like, you know, doing whatever. And then you start kind of realizing, and then you start making these breakthroughs, and then you start thinking about it. We're like, oh yeah, I learned this thing, and it was really cool because, you know, now I can transfer this information into art. I had a friend, and he was getting better at skateboarding, and then all of a sudden he was like, oh yeah, it was kind of like art. I was like, yeah, man, you know what I mean? I was like, that's exactly it. It's these little things where you don't really know what's going to get you better, right? Because after a while, You know, once you get to a certain stage in your art kind of journey, right? A big thing happens where your growth starts to plateau. You know what I mean? Like, there's only so many more tutorials. There's only so many more teachers uh, that you can kind of like learn under, right? Because you've already learned. Like most people, once you get to that advanced kind of level, you know, you kind of get to this stage where there's not much to learn. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that there isn't much, but it's like it's a lot harder to like pick up any new information. You take an $800 class, right? Uh, you take an $800 class, and then literally 1 week of that information is brand new. You know what I mean? And that's like the value exchange isn't quite there as much. And then taking the same class, you know, again, sometimes can get you some cool results, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, you know, I took world building 2 again because I wanted to get better at that or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, it's not as useful because all the information, technically speaking, should be brand new to you. You know what I mean? It should be, it's because you're, you know what I mean? Like, you've already taken that class, and so you get in this zone of like, well, I don't really know what to do to get better, you know? And my recommendation, generally speaking, is always like, do other things. You start kind of learning really quickly what it kind of takes to be good at something, you know, like, because it's all the same fundamentals, you know. It's all like, it's all the same thought process every single time. It's, you know, learn your fundamentals, get better at the base things, and then grow from there. And then once you get to a certain level, you can start freestyling things. You can start breaking the rules because now you know the rules, right? And like, you kind of start making these interesting comparisons. I think a big thing for me was like, you know, when I started getting into photography, not that like I'm actually like amazingly good at it or anything, but the clarity of what image making kind of is kind of like made a lot more sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, there's a I don't know, a cool thought process that happens where, you know, like I've explained it before, where when you have photoreal quality, right? When you can paint and draw the 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 best that you could ever paint and draw, right? What's left, right? If you haven't heard it before, what I talk about with photography is like when everybody is photoreal, right? When, you know, in the photography world, everyone has a camera, right? So cameras are photoreal. If everybody can create an image that's photoreal, right? What makes your image any good? Because, you know, the whole idea behind concept art is, you know, it's you're only as good as your quality, right? That's why 3D is such a like impressive thing for a lot of people, right? Where like when you see someone click render, you're like, wow, that looks so sick, you know. But in reality, it's just Blender doing it really well, right? Because it's just rendering. But when you dive into like a different world, like, you know, like photography, for example, you get into this mindset of like, wait, it can't be the quality because everybody has the same quality as I do, and I bought the new camera, so that didn't help me at all. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not any better because I have the latest camera. You know what I mean? I have one of the best camera, like, not, you know, like, I have one of the best cameras in the last 100 years. Not that it's like that expensive or anything, just in the grand scheme of equipment, right? It's the best camera that would have existed 10 years ago, 20 years, 30 years ago. But there's photographers from 100 years ago that are just amazing. You know what I mean? They had a fucking wooden box and, you know, a tripod. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, like, when you think about it. But that's the thing. It's you start learning that it's not about any of that, you know? And so what, like, linking this back to art, you know, when we start kind of freaking out about like AI is going to replace us and, you know, all these things, it becomes this, you know, I think for me, this like this you have this like reframing, or at least I feel I have this reframing that happens where you know, you start understanding like, oh, well, that's what's important, right? Because you don't really like when you think about it in the scope of like other mediums, right? Like photography, for example, it's like, oh, yeah, they've always had that problem. You know, the same problem that we're having now, where, you know, it's how like this app thing, this program can paint better than I can, right? But then you're like, wait, you know, like in photography, they've always had that problem. The newest camera could always create better images than they could, because that's what the newest cameras do. You know what I mean? It kind of reframes your thinking a lot. I can't I can't explain how big of a like a mental kind of hurdle that I've, you know, just doing other things has kind of like helped. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to explain, but like it's and you don't know. You just don't know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like when you jump into these things, there's a pureness that kind of needs to happen where when you jump into something with the intention of getting better at art, sometimes it does work, right? Sometimes it does kind of actually improve your skill set, right? Right? You know, for sure. But I do find a lot of times when you're looking for the answer, it doesn't always happen. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're looking for how to improve at a certain thing, you know, whatever that is, when you're trying to do that, you rarely find it. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain, but you know, for me, if I have the intention of like I want to, you know, do this thing because it's, you know, it's going to increase, you know, whatever, I find that it doesn't happen that easily for me for whatever reason, right? But whenever I just do something, just anything, right, from cooking to, you know, whatever, you kind of just learn stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's really weird, but yeah, it's a there's this growth that for me that happens every time I pick up something new. And like I think for everybody, like as you're getting kind of your legs under you, right, when you're starting to you know, just kind of get better at art to where you can kind of do a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like when you could paint and draw most things. You want to start figuring out like, well, what are some things that I can do outside of art? And then with that new thing, it starts kind of like really transforming you into somebody that has a unique voice, has a unique experience, has a unique understanding, you know? Cool. All right. We're getting somewhere. So like, as I'm going through this, right, I just kind of want to point out a couple different things. So, you know, like I said, with the earlier model, what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of slowly going in and addressing some of the kind of main things, right? Like I'm not addressing every little bit. We're gonna take this model and do whatever to it later, right? But the whole point is there's little gaps because from the earlier models, oops, boom. Maybe not that one. Hold on, I'll take all this stuff right here. Move to idea 4. All right, so from the initial model, right, we have some like very simple ideas, right? And you know, it's okay to like have dirty models like this. Like it's just so basic, and it's just like masses with like some simple ideas. But then, right, as you go deeper, you add that complexity, right? Now we're getting to this point to where it's probably more complex than I initially thought I would actually take it, you know? But it's fine, you know, we're just playing by ear. We're just seeing what happens. And so I'm just kind of creating things and I'm just filling in gaps, right? And each, like, you know, I had the roof here, well, I had this roof down here, and it was like, that's not really quite working, so I need something else, and then I need to finish off that other idea. I'm just slowly working through the ideas. I have a railing here that needs, you know, certain things happening to it, and so I'm going to start kind of figuring out that rail, so on and so forth. And we're hopefully building into something that, you know, looks sort of complex, but with a lot of basic ideas. You know what I mean? So Oops, there it is. I don't need these pieces right there. Hide that. Cool. Opening railings. That's how we do it. Let's see, what else do I need? I probably need this piece. Sit it like that. There you go. Cool. We're cruising. How's it going, everybody? How's chat feeling about this? Boom, cube, let's go. One issue, I always have trouble making railings. I have to like eyeball it, generally speaking. I don't know how to do this better. There probably is a better way, but I'm very caveman about this, where it's like anytime I have to do something, it's very not ideal. Let's see, scale Z, pop. There it is. All right, cool. So after I make the railing, we're probably getting pretty close. I don't want to go too far because there's a couple different things that I want to do to this in 2D rather than 3D, just because it's gonna be, for one, a little easier to wrap your head around, and then two, it's probably gonna look a little more illustrated, right? Because I think the issue that I have with a lot of modeling, especially if you don't have a quality bar in 2D that can match the 3D. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you when you click render and that's better than how you paint, it's really hard to kind of know how far to take things. You know what I'm saying? It sounds weird to say it that way, but like, it's something where when you don't know how good something needs to look, it's really hard to fix the render itself, right? When I go into, rendered mode or whatever, let me save this before it crashes or something. When I go into rendered mode, and if you can't paint better than this, right, it gets really hard to find corrections. You know what I'm saying? Not like, not saying like anything, not saying you need to be able to paint this well to be like good or anything, but the whole idea is, if your render quality is not as high as the render quality as 3D, a lot of, you'll get that comment a lot where you'll kind of be like, oh, it feels kind of CG. You know what I mean? Those of you that are kind of new to 3D, you probably get that. You've probably heard that before. That's something that I try to avoid as much as possible because, generally speaking, right, especially for those of you that are a little more new, generally speaking, we don't really like that look, right? In a studio setting, I always get the, oh, can you paint that down? It just looks a little too CG right now, and it's because, generally speaking, they want, especially nowadays, where when we're going from the more kind of 3D centered look of like the 2010s era, right? And now we're getting into more like painterly looks, like things like Spider-Verse, things like Puss in Boots, things like Turtles, things like, what's it called? The League of Legends show, that, you know what I mean? Even Blue Eye and so many other shows. Even X-Men recently, right? Everyone's trying to leave that 3D look because it's tired, no one likes it. So you have to kind of, the issue with I guess just using 3D is like you have to be able to match that quality, Rotate Z 180. Not 180. Rotate Z 90. That's what I want. You have to be able to kind of paint better than that because generally speaking, it's not really enough. It doesn't really look that good. You know what I'm saying? So rotate. Nope. Shift D, rotate, nope, rotate, 45, is that halfway? Yeah, that's halfway. All right, Command J those. And this is what I meant by like, I'm not very good at making railings. I just like duplicate the same. Maybe I can make an array or something, that's too much work. Rotate, and then like eyeballing the next one. Command J those, rotate Z, oops. Shift D, rotate Z. There you go. Like a caveman. Let's go, dude. Shift D, rotate Z. There you go. Cool. Uh-oh, messed up. Hold up. Hold the phone. Need that one. Shift D, rotate Z, and these be right there. That's what we needed. Because Command J, Shift D, rotate Z. There you go. Now we're cooking with gas. Let's go, dude. All right, let's rotate that one. Michelle says, what are the most used modifier by concept artists? I don't know, man. I'm not the right person to ask these questions, to be 100% honest. I use 3D, right? I'm clearly using it now. But as you can tell, I'm not very good at it. I kind of like, I'm very, I don't know, I don't say ham-fisted with it, but like, it's a lot of like just things that, I don't even like the way that turned out. If anybody knows a better way to do that, I'm all ears. I'll fix that later. We know it's there. But I'm not very, I don't really use 3D that often, right? It's not that I don't use it. I use it at least 3 or 4 times a week. But I guess like a lot of the techniques used, like modifiers, let's see if I were to click a shape. Where's am I in edit, object mode? Edit mode? No, what's going on? There you go. So I use solidify a lot. I use like Boolean a lot as well. Yeah, Boolean. I don't use bevel that much. I probably should, but I'm pretty destructive with my bevels. Mirror I'll use a lot. And then solidify. I think I said that. Solidify I use a ton. I think that's the one I use the most. I don't really use decimate and stuff, or even subdivide. And the reason is because generally speaking, I paint over everything. So oftentimes the textures and stuff, or I guess I don't need to deform things that much because it's like hard surface and then I kind of fix the rest. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't really use those things that often. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean that people don't. You know what I'm saying? I'm not your role model when it comes to 3D. I do just enough to get by, and even then, it's probably not enough. And with that being said, right, I guess it comes like it brings in the importance of like like how much 3D is even necessary. Like this is like as far as I'll ever go in a work setting because or not ever, but generally speaking, I don't really go much further than this because I don't really need anything much further than this. There's a modeling team for that. There's a whole 3D art team, generally speaking. There's a whole 3D team that kind of handles all those things, so I don't really worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Kenny, can you have a screencast add-on next time you're doing a Blender demo? Like one where you can see my hotkey binds? Is that what you're asking? Like the buttons and stuff that I'm pressing? I'm assuming yes. But yeah, I could do that. If that's what you're talking about, I can totally do that. Cool. Let's see. Where are we at here? I have I have some things that I would kind of want to like figure out as we get deeper. I think at this point, we're kind of yeah. So Vishal said yes. Yeah, I can figure that out. I'll see. That'd probably be helpful for a lot of people too. I'll have to figure that out. Because it'd probably be useful in Photoshop too. Because I use a lot of short keys there. Anyway, this is probably as far as I generally take it. The reason I might kind of add a couple things here and there, but I just want to kind of point out a couple things. Right, we're missing like a lot of small details. Right, like the roof structure. We kind of need that to be, something a little more defined, because there's a whole roof there, right? There's things. So I kind of want that to be a little more, defined. But like the walls and stuff, I'm not worried about that. We'll fix a lot of like the textures. There's no like wood texture or anything I'm applying. I think I might just apply a base color to all this, and then we'll get into next week's demos, which is going to be a slight departure from this. You'll kind of see why. I do that. I kind of want to explain some basic things. That way, once I get back into the demo of actually painting this up, it'll all make sense. You know what I'm saying? But next week, we're going to be kind of covering a lot of materials and things like that. I'm not going to do that in Blender. The main reason is because that's easy. That's just apply, right? I mean, it's not easy, but there's a level of ease there where you can kind of adjust settings and stuff. I'm just going to apply a base color, and then we'll kind of work from there. But I'm going to kind of break down what we do or how I see materials and how I break things down. This way, anytime you paint, you can kind of use what you have to your advantage, right? I think a big issue that I see a lot is people always kind of painting things from scratch. People always like doing things from base zero, essentially, right? And so what I want to do for this coming week is kind of show you how I take advantage of base shapes and the base understanding of like certain materials to kind of get to a good result relatively quickly. So, but you'll see that once we get to that, gets all that stuff. All right, cool. Any last questions? We have about 10 minutes left. I'm gonna kind of keep working for a little bit longer, but yeah. Any last questions as I'm kind of wrapping up here? Take this roof shape and keep going with that. Wow, that's cool. Look at that. Dude, easy detail, easy money. Let's go, baby. Let's see. Pop. Let's get that. Scale that in just a little bit. Bring that up. Bro. And they're like, do you model all that by hand? Yes. Yes, I did. Look. Up. There it is. It's just all hacks. I feel like every time I do a demo, I kind of like, you guys lose respect for me just like a little bit. You're like, that's how he does that? Jesus. Like, this guy's a hack. He's all cheats. This guy's no substance to him.
That's how I feel when like the class I'm like teaching kids in right now. When I'm trying to like hammer them, like, hey, use reference. It's okay to use reference. It's not cheating. Like I'll bring I'll bring like an expression to Photoshop or something, and then talk about like, okay, here's some muscles work or whatever. And I feel like I stepped in like dog shit or something. Right? Like I've committed some kind of like heinous error, or when I'll like grab not just one reference but like multiple, right, and then essentially just kind of rotate the pros around a little bit, or if I paint on top of anything, I feel like I'm losing cred.
Dude, I feel that way with adults, man. I'll not like my advanced classes don't do it as much, but some of my more beginner classes, I'm like, oh yeah, just take that color and apply it. Like you guys see me do it. Like, you just take the reference and just fucking color pick it and put it in there, They're like, you could do that? I'm like, yeah, man, it's color. You know, it's like you act like I'm like fucking stealing this guy's investments. You know what I mean? No, man, it's just color. It has nothing to do with anything. I'm not like cutting anything out and putting it in. You know, um, it's so it's such a simple thing. You know, but and that's the thing. Like, it's weird because I think I come across this pretty often where I'm so used to being in the professional field. You know what I mean? Because you know, not just like working, but like, you know, the people that I follow, generally speaking, are entertainment designers specifically, right? Um, or even, you know, like students, professionals. Like we're all in the same kind of bubble, right? And it's funny because like the second you step out of that, right, then it's like, you know, they like the internet community is like filled with so many different like weird thoughts on like art as a whole, and it's like, man, that's crazy, you know. Like I think, what was it, there was that controversy or like Ross Draws like was using a reference of a person to make this character. I mean, granted, it was a little close, right, and I admit that, but like, I mean, it was like, that's it, you know, like like that's what you're worried about. Just wait till you see what we do at work, you know. It's like I don't want to say it like that, but like I mean, you know, if this is hurting you, this might not be your industry. That sounds fucked up.
Drives me nuts. Telling people like, oh yeah, I draw with Photoshop digital art, and people go, oh, so it like draws for you. And that when I first started digital painting stuff, that was the one thing I constantly had to fight people with. It's like, no, it doesn't draw for you. You still need to know how to draw and paint. But the minute you mention you do it on the computer, like, oh, so it's like a program that does it. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
The worst one was my mom. I had explained that to her like 17 times. I was like, God, mom.
That's
I even
wild.
showed-
The computer did this for you, right? You did this on the computer? It's like, I mean, you know, it's like I could have did it with pencil too, but I just chose not to.
It's the worst.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right.
But now the computer does do it for some people, and so it made things even more confusing.
Oh, I know. Yeah, now there's the whole, you know, you can actually type it in, and it's like, you know, I guess there's a level of like it kind of did do it, you know. Not that we're doing that, but you know, there's
Like we're in a world where everything's labeled as AI. So even if you put in like a week's worth of, the better your drawing is, the more people go, oh, yo, is that AI? You're like, oh my god, dude, I'm done.
Yo, especially with that label now. I think what was it? As Adobe or Instagram or whoever, they were like labeling anything where you kind of used it was either like Lightroom or something. You like either use like a tool like Spot Heal or whatever. It would like label it as AI because technically speaking, it is a little bit of AI that did it, but like it just broad scope like just labels the whole thing as AI. I was like, what the? That's weird. But I mean, I don't know. But yeah, it's very
So you're using AI right now to do this, right?
yeah, Asian intelligence. And
What? Hey, I came late to the party though. What are you designing? Like, what was the whole idea of everything here? Sorry.
oh yeah, no worries. So this is a continuation of last week. Basically, I kind of I made the variations on a recap for everybody. Everybody showed up late. Everybody jumping on the boat later. I made 3 variations of the coffee shop idea that I had for my buildings, right? So from this painting from last month, we wanted to kind of go deeper into the building, right? Like into one of the hard surface building designs. So using kind of like some of the ideas here, I'm kind of giving one of these buildings a very specific label where it's like, oh, this is going to be a coffee ceremony-esque, very similar like tea ceremony, except coffee in this case, because my reference was an espresso machine. And so I'm kind of making up this cultural thing, right? And then making a building that kind of encompasses that. And so from my first design, or first pass that we did last week on last stream, was this one on the left here. And this is kind of like, it's supposed to be kind of catching water from the waterfall or you can actually see the reference. You can see me doing that drawing here. But catching the water from these waterfalls and like, using it, containing it and boiling it and this and that. From there, right, off stream, I kind of made 2 more variations. I didn't really like the way they turned out too much. There's a couple ideas here and there that I kind of liked, a couple ideas I didn't like. And so from there, I made a new, well, this is a better representation of what I had at the start. This one right here. And I kind of did a draw over to kind of show what I was thinking with like water pouring in, and it kind of has like this kind of cool, like majestic water flow type thing going down the walls. And then it's going to kind of be draining out using like actual like Japanese like gutter technology, right? And then we're kind of just refining that. We're pushing that, 10 degrees further. We're not going to be modeling this out completely, right? Just a reminder to everybody, like this is kind of as far as it goes. Not that piece. Where's that at? This is about as far as it goes. And then I'm going to take this, paint it up in the style of, I won't say style, but in the kind of process of this artist right here. Hold up, I'm pulling it up right now. Boom. It's going to be very similar to like one of these where we have this kind of like, isolated kind of building design where like I like these a lot. For one, they're very informative, right? Because you zoom in, you can see how much detail is actually involved in these. But I like it because there's like the building plus like 10% outside of, and this is important because, and we'll get into more of it later. It's important because it gives us context. It's not just the building sitting on a thing. There's more to it, right? So I'm going to kind of be breaking down into that just a little bit further as we kind of go along here. But we're getting somewhere, right? This is about as far as I'd probably take a model like this. I might add a couple things here and there, like set dressing wise. But a lot of the main shapes are complete. And then we're just going to make some cool stuff at this point, So, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
It's a really fun idea.
Thanks, man.
Do you figure out your lighting in 3D first, too? Take this building.
Well, in this case, I have a lighting scenario already. So from last month's painting, right? I kind of have like a general tone and mood, but I'm actually not going to follow this. The reason I say that is because this lighting, this foggy kind of darker atmosphere, right? That's not, it's not very, I guess, good for like a 3/4 view design, kind of like what we're seeing in this artist stuff, right? So I'm just gonna kind of stick with a generic kind of like 3/4 lighting, top down ish, and then kind of go from there. There's little things here and there that I'm gonna explain later. I'm not gonna talk about it right now, just because I'm gonna make a bigger deal out of it once we get into week 3 or 4. But for now, just know that it's going to be more of a standard lighting. That way we can see more detail, right? The reason we do that, and for everybody kind of like watching and following along, right? The reason we do that is because the painting that we're seeing here, right, versus the model that we're doing here serve 2 different purposes. And we really want to know why we do certain things, right? When we start doing a painting, like this is like a blue sky painting. Like I had nothing, like when I started the project, blank canvas, just a prompt, turned into this, right? This is supposed to inspire. This is supposed to help us understand what the world looks and feels like. It drives direction. And then getting into the model, this is supposed to inform. The reason why we're so much more particular about the way it functions, the way things intersect, all this and that, is because it matters now. Because before, no one was going to build anything from this kind of painting. You're supposed to kind of like look at it and be like, oh, that's really cool. I like the way that area is turning out. Let's dive deeper. Because that's usually what happens at work. They're like, here's the blue sky development image, and then we kind of dive deeper, right? You break down the buildings, you break down the rocks, all the important stuff, so on and so forth. But we were kind of like, we did that phase. Going deeper, now we need to figure out the details, and that's kind of where we're at now. So there's information versus inspiration. We really want to remember why we do certain things and what phase we need to do them at, right? So cool. Let's hide that. Turn that off. Let's go. Cool, guys. So that's all I got. I'm probably going to take things like, like 10% deeper, right? Today was a pretty slow day. It's mostly about understanding and kind of pushing things further. Variation days tend to be a little slower in that way because we're not really creating new ideas. We're combining old ones, right? The ideas that we kind of thought of, they kind of get injected into this. They get pushed a little further. They change. They grow. But it's a lot slower of a process. It's not as flashy as doing like a bigger painting. It's not as flashy as doing the ideation phase, right? So just kind of understand that there is a slower moment in your design phase, and just kind of be aware of that, because whenever I'm designing like big stuff, it's flashy. The episodes are like more impactful. There's more things going on. But in the middle of the process, right, we're kind of at this slower point where you do need to slow down, think, break things down, understand better. And so for those of you kind of following along and doing this as well, just remember that, right? Just understand that every phase has strengths and weaknesses. Every process has every part of the process has a reason that it exists. So when you do your variation phase, for those of you following along, try to just make some of your ideas, right? Like you should have a handful of ideas. I came out with 3, right? I usually come out with like 6-ish, 5 to 6, right? And then that next one is the combination. Come out with a couple different ideas, different directions, different purposes, right? And then once you get that idea, you take that a bit further and you push it, right? Because now what a big mistake that happens a lot is we stay in the same phase of design where like, let's say I turn to my ideation phase to my art director, and then he goes, okay, cool, I like this one, or I like that one, or whatever, right? And then I take it and then combine them and then kind of leave them at the same stage. You're not really moving forward. You're just kind of making the adjustments, right? What you want to do, make the adjustments, push to the next stage, right? I made the adjustments, I combined what I needed, I changed what I wanted, and then I pushed into a higher fidelity, right? I care more about those smaller details now than I did before. And that's what you want to do. Push things one notch deeper, right? Go one step, from large shapes to medium shapes. Next step, we're getting into small shapes, right? And I'll kind of break that down. This is when we get into cut lines, get into patterns, get into, various things. And hopefully this is something that's going to be, pretty cool by the end of it. We'll get into painting next. The modeling phase, does kind of take a second, but we'll get into materials and painting next, and then hopefully we'll finish this the next 2 weeks. So, if there's any questions on this, please leave it in the comments, leave it in the chat. If you're part of the Discord, definitely feel free to message. If you want to be a part of this, right, please join the Livestream Plus. You can get some feedback there. Currently, there's a shocking number of people in like the lower number kind of participating. So like, it's kind of becoming like a one person mentorship, you know what I mean? So I mean, it's, if you want some good feedback, we do it for the hour. So if you want a good amount of feedback on the work that you're doing, please participate. It's it's great. It's a great opportunity for one to get some feedback on your work and to kind of grow and hopefully by the end of this make a good portfolio piece. But if you don't want to participate, definitely, thank you for watching, and I really, really appreciate everybody being here, So with that in mind, we're going to get into materials next week. So we're going to kind of branch off for this for a second. For the first kind of half, we're going to be doing this kind of other demo. I'm going to show you how I think about things and how I kind of put things together. And then we'll get into applying that to this, right? So it should be fun. It's material weeks are a really fun week for me. So, but yeah. Well, with that in mind, that's all I got. So if there's any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching. Later.